Hello, West Ham Network. It's Holly, and today I want to have a little chat about James Ward-Prowse because in the 3 games that he's played for us since returning to West Ham, we have not conceded a single goal while he has been on the pitch. But the question is this a coincidence, or have we massively underestimated the impact that he could actually make on the rest of our season? Let's talk about it. Yes, West Ham Network. So, as I said, it's time to talk about James Ward-Prowse because when he came back to West Ham on deadline day, the general consensus was that it was a good idea to bring in some extra options, and that was obviously a very straightforward one to do. He wasn't being used. We'll talk about that in more detail in a second. But the news of his return, it didn't exactly bring the same level of excitement as it did when he initially signed for us. No one was buzzing about him returning, and if anything, it was kind of like a little token thing at the end of the transfer window. However, after his start, I've begun to actually think that he could play a key role in Potter's plans for the rest of this season and bring us something that we have been missing. In the absence of being able to spend more in the January transfer window and bring someone else in, I think he's actually doing a very good job so far. So before we get started, I want you to tell me your thoughts on James Ward-Prowse down below in that comment section. And if you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button to support the channel. So after his initial spell at the club, we knew that he was brilliant at set pieces. Everyone in the whole football land has always known that. But we were yet to see him score from a free kick, ironically, because he's just 1 goal behind Beckham, the leading goal scorer from free kicks in the Premier League. And we also knew that he could rack up some goals, some assists. So it was a strange one to say goodbye when we did. He got sent out on loan to Nottingham Forest, where he spent most of his time on the bench and sometimes not even in the squad. In fact, having signed for them in August, he only played a full 90 twice. Now, this loan, it never made much sense, especially in hindsight, but even at the time, his departure, it left us short in midfield with players like Guido Rodriguez that didn't have that proven Premier League experience, so it could really have gone either way at that point. And it just felt like a risky move and one that didn't really bring any value to get rid of somebody that we were able to play at times, and he gave us another option in the midfield. So now we've brought him back. Obviously, none of us would have expected Forest to be in the European spots at this point in the season, but their form meant that no one else was getting a look in. And as a result, Ward-Prowse was barely given any chance to play. So aside from being wasted there, most importantly to us, he wasn't playing, he wasn't keeping up with game time, and he was potentially losing value with a lack of game time because what clubs are going to want to invest in somebody that literally hasn't been playing? Now, what have we seen since he's returned that has got me a bit excited? So, first of all, we brought him on against Brentford. It was a horrific game, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that despite his statements about being ready to play and being fit and having worked hard while away, that this was definitely true. You could see from the second that he stepped foot on the pitch that he hadn't dropped fitness. He went on to show that he'd maintained fitness, or if anything, to be honest, continue to improve. So, it was a good start that he could just slot back in. We brought him on to replace Souček at half-time, and he did go on to play a key part in fixing some of the issues, not all of them, that we'd been facing in that game. He helped us to win the second ball a little bit more. We became more dynamic in midfield. We were able to hold possession slightly better. Obviously, it didn't allow us to turn the game around. That would have been a big old ask from someone that's just returned to West Ham. But for anyone that was at that game, I'm sure you can agree that we were lucky to just be 1-0 down at half time. We didn't deserve to get anything from that performance. And to have turned that around wouldn't have been deserved and would have been a little bit of a miracle. But in that second half, that triple substitution did seem to tidy things up a little bit, because in the midfield, we weren't getting overrun in the same way that we were in the first half, where if anyone was watching, we couldn't get the ball. We could not. Brentford were not sharing with us. So yeah, James Ward-Prowse made a big difference there. And a key part of his game that I think he's improved is that he's not only playing straightforward passes in open play, but now he's looking to switch the ball or get it out to Wan-Bissaka. And that was one of my frustrations probably in his first spell at West Ham, was that we know that he has this pinpoint accuracy. We know that he can place a ball perfectly where he wants to. And yet he seemed to favour those short passes over switching play while the ball was actually in play. From obviously free kicks, he would pick people out and things like that. But in play, it seemed like he never wanted to spray the ball. So we started seeing him do that a little bit, which is good because it just adds that bit of, I don't know, the va-va-voom. It brings the va-va-voom. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but basically what it means is that we can be a little bit less predictable in midfield, which is something that we've really struggled with in recent years because we have been so pedestrian in the way that we approach things that teams can predict the way that we're going to pass back. So that I'm excited about. And it's something that I think we can expect to see him do more. And it's something that I think is also going to bring us a real benefit. And another common criticism was that he wasn't the type of midfielder to be overly defensively minded or put in those crunching tackles that sometimes you just need to do. However, again, pleasantly surprised, since his return, we've seen him make some impressive challenges. There have been quite a few times where, especially in the Leicester game, I felt like he was just all over the place. He was in the right place at the right time. He made some tackles. He's done some slide tackles, which are things that I didn't feel like we saw very often with him. But he's getting involved in the attack and the defence that we're doing. So personally, I couldn't really be any happier with the form in which he has returned to West Ham. So they're my general thoughts on what we've seen so far about James Ward-Prowse since he's returned. Basically, he's on the ball. He's in form. He's keen to get the ball as well. You can see that he's just desperate to be on the ball. And I think that's a really good trait because it's going to get other players needing to put in the same amount of effort. I also think that he brings a lot that isn't just on the pitch in terms of, motivating the team, being a really good squad player, being a good member of that team, because you can see that so many people are happy. In fact, there was a video on West Ham social media the other day, and they were all asked questions about certain players, and quite a few people mentioned James Ward-Prowse in their answers. So that is the perfect example of how it's more than just what he can bring on the pitch, on and off the pitch. So let's have a little look ahead. So Ward-Prowse, I think, has a big old challenge coming because as a player that does the ugly things well, if he's not scoring and he's not assisting, he is always going to be in the firing line for that criticism. It's exactly what happens with Souček. He does the ugly stuff. He does the groundwork. He does a lot of running. He puts in a lot of work. But when you're not getting those numerical stats that you can look at him and say that is what he does, it's really hard to spot what they do. And as a result, they do get put through the ringer. So I'm quietly confident that James Ward-Prowse can link up play and play a big old part in a strong end to our season. And I'm hoping with that will come a lot of goals and assists. Do I expect him to play in every game? No. But do I think that he is a great option to have? Absolutely. And at the point at which we weren't going to bring anyone else in January, I think James Ward-Prowse is a real asset to have regained, regardless of whether or not he was a new signing. Plus, only at West Ham could we sign the player with the second most goals from Premier League free kicks in the entire world and have him score more corners than he has free kicks for us. When you get a player that is that West Ham, I feel like you've just got to embrace him, celebrate him, love him. So yeah, the team seem delighted to have him back. I'm excited to see what he can do as well. And here's hoping he can finally score from a free kick, equalise that Beckham record, get another, and then be the leading Premier League free kick goal scorer. So those are my overall thoughts. I actually think that what we've been lacking massively is something that can link up that midfield, can work to bring the ball between defence and attack, and to just control the ball a little bit more in midfield, because it does feel like even when we have been getting possession, we've been giving it away too cheaply. And we've been missing a player that can sort of calm it down and help us to keep possession. And I think James Ward-Prowse could be a very good option to do that some of the time, if not all of the time, up until the end of the season. I'm not saying we don't need to obviously strengthen, but what I'm trying to say is I'm excited that James Ward-Prowse is back and he's performing how he is. So here is to a couple of very big months ahead for James Ward-Prowse. So that's all from me for now. Tune in at 5 p.m. where I'm going to be running through your Hammers headlines. And until next time, have a great day. Come on, you Irons. Irons. Irons.